is the Diary of a Lady Band Director podcast, brought to you by the Passion Is Network.
Hello. Hi. Hey, I tried a new lip color. I don't know if I like this. I looked at myself, I was like, whoa, that's not what I wanted. Well, hello. Welcome to episode 21. I can't believe I've had 21 episodes of this since we started. Shout out to Passion Is Network. Shout out to my boy Julian. He is under the weather, so we send well wishes and prayers. Let's be real. One, this flu going around sounded a little COVID-like to me, but you know, whole classroom shut down. Like, it's hit my class. I ain't got sick because I hit them with that Lysol daddy. Be like, as soon as they come in my room, they get in my bubble. Stay back. They not gonna get me. So, welcome guests. We'll start with some introductions because we have a new panel of people, experts in the field, people who have either taught on the collegiate level or teach on the high school level and got a lot of insight for this topic, the miseducation of a music major. Now, first of all, I'm a Lauryn Hill fan until she started showing up late, but forever and forever, she will still be that album because that album still hitting it. I don't know what she be doing now, but you know, I can't pay for no ticket. You're gonna show up 3 hours late. But without further ado, we're gonna start with introductions of our guest panel for tonight, and we're gonna start with you, Mr. Reed. I've been trying to listen. I have been wanting to talk to you for a minute. We always be on. Listen, we be instant message each other back and forth. But now you're here. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you go to school at? Where do you teach at? All that good stuff.
Well, my name's Daniel Reed. I'm from Jacksonville. I was born in Jacksonville, and I teach in Jacksonville all my years, K-12 and all that in Jacksonville, and I came back to teach here. And then I went very far away, 60-something miles, to the University of Florida, which is where I got my undergraduate degree from. And now I teach at Inglewood High School in Jacksonville. It's my second school. I started middle school for 4 years. I was at Jeff Davis, I think, for 3 or 4 years, which McNair followed me there, I think, sometime after me. And then I moved on to Inglewood High School. This is my 8th year at Inglewood, I think. So it's about 10 years teaching for me now.
Listen, if you make it past 5 years, you're a veteran now. If you make it past 3 years, you're a veteran. I got 17 years, y'all. Whew. I know. I think somebody on the screen got me beat, but I ain't gonna out them like that. I think we about the same age. KT, Kenneth Northcutt, my clarinet dog, my clarinet partner in crime. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Krystal. Hey, everybody else. My name is Kenneth T. Northcutt Jr. I did teach 4 years at the high school level. I taught 3 years at Goldsboro High School, which is in Eastern North Carolina. And then I taught 1 year at Harding University High School, which is in Charlotte. I, unfortunately, am no longer in K-12. I transitioned to higher education. I still support K-12 music programs, high school bands, teach lessons, do adjudications, whatever I can to support, but I'm just no longer in the classroom. But I still support the acquisition of music education still happening.
Listen, I made that crossover daddy too, and we gotta talk a little bit about that because it's a whole different ball game from when we were in school. Freeman, listen, one, I didn't know where to send information to because you got like 27 screen names that are on my page. I was like, who? Freeman, we got Freeman approaching doctorate in training, almost at the doctorate. I know you almost done. So just give us a little bit about yourself, because that's something to applaud for on the first place. I ain't there yet. You muted, my guy.
Here we go.
There we go.
I'm just gonna be real with everyone, because I don't like the the elitist thing about they say about certain people that may not have may not went down the same path to becoming a music educator as others. I am a graduate of Bethune-Cookman University, even though I didn't receive I switched majors because I was trying to graduate, man. So, but I did get enough hours to teach music. And then I went on to, years later, got my certification and ended up getting my master's in music. Now I'm getting my doctorate. I've been teaching I've taught high school, elementary, and middle school for 20 years. I've been teaching since 2002. And, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. And through all of this, I've been arranged professionally, Block Band Music and Publishing. Block Band,
Shout out to Block Band.
Shout out to Rashad Waters and the whole Block Band crew. Did a little drill writing for certain bands and everything. So, I've been going through cutting the mustard. I've been, persevering and pushing through. Now I'm in my final, I'm working on my doctoral thesis on the HBCU band culture and the style. So I'm ready to just go and get this thing wrapped up.
Listen, hats off to you. I currently work across the street from University of Maryland, and that was deliberate because I'm going to start in 2023. And I ain't ready. Listen, I'm not ready. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I know I got to get it, but I don't want to. I'm tired of school. That's all I got to say. So shout out to you. And you don't have to disclaim nothing, man. You got more degrees than most who got something to say. So if I'm a back it, if you at that point where you writing your theses, you done been put through the ringer. So you cool with me. And there's a lot of diversity in opinions, and that's why I picked this panel, because we got everything from, I've taught from elementary to high school to college. I've taught now on all levels. Dan Reed, you relocated somewhere to teach. KT, you on the collegiate level, and that's gonna bring a good conversation for tonight. Excuse me. So I gotta get my script daddy on like Julian. I don't have that voice. I don't even like listening to myself, so I'm going to do it real quick. Welcome to Diary of a Lady Band Director, the only all-woman podcast on the air that talks about everything band and music education, all from the view of a woman, moi. As usual, we love sharing the stage with our dedicated viewers to gain more insight and encourage dialogue throughout. So if you want to share your insight, mic up using the link pinned in the comment section soon. And just know that differences on opinion is always respected here. We like different insight. Just if you're in the chat, keep it respectable and keep it cute. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say keep it cute. Without further ado, tell us about your little icebreaker question. Tell us about your experience as an undergrad music major. Not specific to education, because I don't know if everybody did music education, but what was your experience like? Share your school if you care to or not. I gotta put that disclaimer in. And whoever puts the church finger up first goes. And if you don't know what that is, that's this. I gotta go to the bathroom, or I'm tired of sitting in this chair, so I gotta get up. KT, you win.
All right. So I had the unique opportunity of doing 2 undergraduate experiences in music. So I'll briefly speak on both. My experience with the first one, I'm not going to name names just to be respectful. The first one, it started out pretty good. I had a very good applied teacher, and I had some other professors that were great. But I unfortunately ran into some challenges with certain professors didn't really care for me that much, and I never understood what that was about. that created challenges as far as things in the department that weren't band related. I got skipped over for some things. I got purposely kind of left out, and that kind of hurt at times, but I just kind of persevered forward. And then even trying to get into the education program, I was met with some blocks and challenges, so it just turned me off, and I just got my general music degree and graduated. So I ended up going to my second institution. I remember walking in the door and they asked me, how come you just didn't go straight to grad school? My honest opinion and answer was I didn't feel equipped enough. So I auditioned, and they said that they would help me prepare, like this degree program would prepare me for graduate school. And that's exactly what it was. It was 5 semesters. Every opportunity that I could play, I was playing, whether it was my rep, whether it was just different opportunities throughout the department. I was even able to do an undergraduate research project with the string teacher and a piano teacher. So I was able to play with faculty in a trio, and most students didn't get that opportunity. But the purpose of me coming was to prepare for graduate school. So I would say that my first degree program kind of gave me the basics and different things, but my second degree program is what really propelled me to transition to UNCSA to get my master's in performing artist certificate.
What I like is a lot of people don't realize that maybe the school is not the place for them, and they stay. And I think that's a terrible idea, because you're paying for this. And a lot of people, they stay because they're afraid of transferring or afraid of moving, and then it's not working for them, or they don't graduate. So shout out to you for realizing you needed a different scenery. And you didn't say to school. I kind of know where you went because we've had conversations offline, but not been skipped over stuff. We might tabernacle on that a little bit. Freeman, if you would go ahead and I gotta keep that in the front of my mind.
Okay, now, my experience in the HBCU music education program with me, it's about, the work on practicing on the instrument and everything. And then a lot of with Bethune-Cookman, there was a lot of demands that were made, during the time I was in the music program there. We had to go Friday, we had to dress up, professional seminar. If you weren't dressed, they make you go back to your room and get dressed. We had, recital. Some Fridays we had recital, and then some things, they had, other things they had, but it was to the point, my, time being there, because I was already, at that point, oh boy, I'm a little nervous being on it. Excuse me, Krystal.
Listen, this family, we just talking to each other, and just so happen to be, some people might be watching, but
yeah, but it was, it was the experience I had, it was pretty interesting experience, but I had to graduate. I had to graduate at the time. And then at that time, I wasn't really disciplined musically. I'm just going to be straight out. There were some things, I had to look back, I had to reflect on. And I had to, once I started teaching, I had to, get that stuff together. And then years later, all of a sudden, there was a door open for me to go to Liberty University and go into their music, Master of Arts and Music Education program, and I just decided to take that route. But, when I look at some of the classes that I had to take in the degree track for at Bethune-Cookman, I'm noticing that certain things, and then I looked at some of the stuff that they, I'm looking at other schools and what, some of the things other schools have learned, like say, for instance, ORF.
Ooh, hold on. Don't dig into that yet, because we're going to talk about curriculum. Don't dig that far in that yet, because you touching the nerve, and I want to dedicate some time to that curriculum talk. So you said ORF, and instantly I was like, I didn't know what it was until I was in a classroom, and I felt so stupid because everybody else from other places knew what it was. I was like, I don't know what that is. Don't scratch it that yet. There's a question for that.
Yeah, but one of the things I want to tell you though, like say for instance, a lot of the music and the music education programs everywhere, it seems as though to me that the degree track was more focused on the performance aspect, the praxial aspect of music education, and it doesn't tap into the educator. Like say for instance, it seems those most colleges, and I wouldn't say HBCUs, I would say all colleges across the board only teach them to be band directors and choral directors. They don't teach them to be actual music educators. Like say for instance, upon graduating from any music education program, you might not even get a band. You might not even get a choir. You may be teaching elementary music. And the thing about it, when I took the elementary music course at Bethune-Cookman, I had switched my major. I had switched from a major to a minor. I switched from a major to a minor in music and switched to elementary ed. And we took the elementary ed music. Creative Expressions Music was the name of the course. And we took it, and all of the elementary ed majors took that course. But it wasn't even on the degree track for the music ed majors. And see, I always wondered why. Even when I was at Cookman, I always wondered why. You know, because if you're a music educator, you need to be teaching not just band, not just chorus, but everything. And all because that certification is going to say music. In Florida, it says music K through 12, and then now they have another subsidiary of the certificate as well. But still, you know,
Raymond, let me. You start to preach. I don't have the Cash App up. I don't have I don't have the little offering daddy. But listen, you all on the topic. Mine say K through 12. Let me tell you, I don't know sugar honey iced tea about teaching no little babies. I don't. I know y'all think I'm really a strong educator. I'm good from like 4th, 5th grade up. And really not even really 4th grade, only because I could do like recorder and orff instruments. That I ain't got nothing for them little babies that sit on the carpet. That's my worst nightmare. I'll never say I can teach elementary ed. Not because I think I'm a bad educator. It's just that I don't feel like I was ever prepared. But don't tabernacle on that. I gotta move on to Dan.
Okay.
Daniel Reed.
Hi. So I jotted some notes down, but as I heard Mac talk, it occurred to me that a lot of the things are going to be the same, you know. And of course, I went to a PWI. Well, you know, I went to a high school with a band director that's dyed in the wool, FAMU, King lineage, and all that stuff. So I had kind of both experiences in my life. But you know, a lot of
Dan, Dan and I we were rivals. I went to Reigns and he went to Reebok, and we were the high school rivals. That was the arch rivals, one of the largest rivalries in Florida. So, you know, that's how me and Dan. And then like he said, I'm taught at the school that he was at on Jeff Jefferson Davis Middle, but he's at the high school that I started teaching. That was my first high school I ever taught at, Inglewood High. So,
yeah, and so I'm listening to Mac talk about, you know, Friday convocation and things like that, and it must be every school has some sort of Friday. You all coalesce at noon or something and watch it, whoever the studio professors put out there, and recital attendance and things like that. What I think of, you know, and aside from the fact that I've never seen a methods course that is sufficient in any school, when I look at syllabuses and when I look at it's what's unprepared TAs, poor equipment, the TAs who themselves have not taught you might be a really great performer on your instrument, but you haven't taught the instrument to somebody else that's an adult, much less what we're going to be asked to do, which is teach the instrument to a kid whose brain is going to work a little bit differently, and just taking those processes into mind. We're teaching music education the same way it's been done for the last 100 years or so, and it's not changing to adapt to the world, especially in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're still doing things kind of the same way. And, where is music technology in the curriculum programs? Where is diverse pathways into playing an instrument seriously that you could do, getting kids to switch instruments, getting kids invested in, say, bucket drumming or recorder or something as a hook, and then how to give them transferable skills that make that transition easier if you convince them to join your marching band or your choir or whatever. And those sort of, and the soft skills of dealing particularly with, traumatized children, because long before COVID, we've had traumatized children, and I've never once remember a conversation in university on how to deal with when these kids are in front of you and they've dealt with whether it's more immediate trauma of something happened or just,
or when they throw a chair at you,
right, or just internalized generational trauma that students of color and students of low income situations that they deal with, and what are those kids going to look like, and what can you expect, and things like that. So playing an ensemble, right? Teach the music theory, because you have to know all that stuff, even if you're not going to do it. Use it every day to day, but there needs to be a lot more, well-roundedness in what happens in the education side of it. And it probably is going to look something like getting those kids in as many classrooms that are real as often as possible in the area around that school, and not just the 10 times or whatever to meet the requirements of the class, but like probably every week you're in school as a music ed major, somewhere you should be in somebody's classroom, seeing what's going on, asking questions and things like that. Even if it's just seeing how they use Microsoft Excel to manage their inventory for 2 weeks or whatever, just seeing all that kind of stuff, so that you're kind of filing it away as you move through the series, the theory 1, 2, 3, 4, so that when you hit your first job, and I'm diverging a little bit, but I didn't need to say.
No, you forced me to put the question on the screen. And that's fine. It's fine. We gonna jump around because this is a topic that's just, it's long overdue. This topic is long overdue. Dan, you said 100 years. There's easy. We have not changed education, music ed, in at least 50. At least 50. I got some opinions on that. So now I have to present the question that y'all kind of dancing over. Are the requirements for a music degree outdated at our HBCUs? So I'm not going to say, I'm going to try to take, if you need to take HBCU off to answer this, that's fine. I teach at a PWI. I went to a HBCU. I got 2 degrees. I got my master's, my master's and bachelor's from an HBCU, and then I got my other master's from a PWI. So I have I've been to both, and I'm sure like Freeman, you can identify with, and I think KT, you can definitely identify with going to both. And then even you're still HBCU groomed because your band director in high school came from an HBCU. So one, I teach the method courses at my school. I teach the method courses. I've been doing it now. I'm in my 2nd year. And one thing about my curriculum, now, if someone wants to check me, I'll post my syllabus. My syllabus is completely 21st century teaching. Everything I do is because I got it from the mud. I came out, No Child Left Behind hit, and band was eradicated from my district. Almost like zero base. It's still pretty dismal up here. And I had to find new ways to get students to learn because I didn't have the culture to rely on, because it had been, I want to say, drugs hit the DC, Baltimore, metropolitan, these major cities up here hard. And I kid you not, they discovered a band room under the auditorium. I had been teaching in this middle school for 5 years. They discovered a band unit. It was a tomb. Music in there was dated 1982. Like, it almost like someone shut the door and said, no more music. And when you got to teach like that, that textbook way that you might have learned in undergrad, that shit wasn't working. I'm just going to tell you right now, when you got kids who ain't never seen an instrument, nobody in their family seen an instrument, Like some people like, oh, we don't have no band program down here, you know, blah, blah, blah. We talking marching band won't move them. Concert band won't move them. Jazz band won't move them. Nothing moves them because it has been eradicated. And I had to come on and be like, who set me up? I got set up. I felt like I got set up for failure. So outdated, absolutely. I'm saying that from the collegiate level. I think my department chair and my boss, he hired all of the talent in the state who had been doing 21st century practices. I'm gonna drop names. He hired Angelica Brooks, works with me. Dr. Liz Palmer works with me. He hired all of the forward-thinking music educators into the department in the last 2 years, because coming out the pandemic, he knew. But I wish more people thought like that. I don't know. Are the requirements for a music degree outdated? And if so, how so? Whoever put up the church finger, go.
Well, I will say this, and I think we need to take the HBCU out. It needs to be for all music programs, because there's some things they really needs with music education. It really needs to be, it's not just, band, it's not just choir, it's everything. If you go on these elementary schools, you'll find that some of these kids do not have no prior background in music. Some of them have never taken a music course. And some things that, you expect, you may expect from them to know, especially fifth graders, they don't know or they forgot. So you have to review. And that's even in the middle school. And now with these middle schools, see, the thing with music education programs now, they need to teach what's going to happen in the current setting.
Come on now, sir. Come on, preach a good word.
What's going to happen in the current setting? You're going to go into a middle school, you're going to have to rebuild that band program with no instruments. You're going to have instruments, but you're going to have kids that are not interested in band. You're going to have kids that are eighth graders, and you're going to have to start a band with them, and they're not interested because they failed the FK, and they don't even allow students in this day and age, a lot, especially here in Florida, well, in Duval County, Jacksonville, they do not allow middle school students to pick their own elective.
We don't have electives up here. We haven't had them in about 20 years. 20 years. That's 2 generations worth. No electives.
And a lot of this, dealing with high stakes testing and standardized testing, it's taken a lot away. So, band directors and choral directors and music teachers, general music, because when I was at Jefferson Davis, I was teaching general music. And I taught one band course during the COVID pandemic. I went on and took my beginning band, 6th graders. I knew that they were y'all were gonna have that fight against them trying to play an instrument. What I ended up doing is turning the whole class into a percussion class, and the rest of my classes were online virtual during that pandemic. And I have the kids buy into it. We learned exercises, we learned cadences, we learned, I taught them their rudiments and everything. And we just, the kids, for the most part, they gravitated to it. And see, that's what you need. That's what you want. You want to get the kids interested. And the assistant principal, and most of the time in Duval County, a lot of school districts that's like that, the assistant principal curriculum decides whether to makes the schedules. They send those kids where they go, they have room for them. They send them, they pick their electives. Because I want to be very honest, a lot of the students that are not sufficient on a lot of the students that are not sufficient on the standardized testing, they're either wanting to make a 1 in math, or 1 in reading, because you have to score at least a 3 to be proficient in math or reading in the state of Florida. If they're not sufficient, then they're insufficient in making a 1 or 2. They're not even allowed to take an elective. And then the kids that are allowed to take an elective, they're not even interested in music. They're not even interested in art. And I've had students come to me, well, Mr. McNair, I want to be in band. They didn't assign band to me. They put me in art. And these kids really want to be in band. And my thing is not like how it was when I was in school, where we chose, because I'm, in my late 40s. So back during when I was going to school, high school, and in middle school in the late 80s and the early 90s, we got to choose band. We got it's not even like that now. So
I think that's a good segue, kind of to somebody else. Like that, the fact that people understand kids aren't even getting to choose this thing. Like, especially the performing ensembles. Dan, you got something to add on to that?
Yes. So that's going to differ a lot state to state. And, I've seen both sides of the coin, because I'm pretty close with my admin, and they'll give me what I ask for, as long as I ask in the right way, let's say that way. A lot of this stuff is set by higher than the school level. So we can complain about the assistant principal choosing the elective, but the assistant principal is just following the principal's directives, which is the middle school guidelines directives, which is set by the state, which is most of the time set by the state. So the real change maker there for middle school scheduling, for high school scheduling, is to get people into the school board meetings, into the state board of education meetings, and say, we need you to, from the top, value music education, and it needs to be in enough force that they listen. Now, the other side of that coin is you can't choose what you don't know. The kids aren't interested in band because they don't know band. They haven't seen a band. They haven't seen a concert band. They didn't go to the Nutcracker when they were in elementary school, or whatever the heck they do. Locally, the Jacksonville Symphony sends quartets and things out, and they'll see little snippets, but there's not a consistent pressure. In almost all of North Florida, North and Central Florida, there's broken feeder systems around, so there's not strong bands that can drive around and say, hey, elementary schoolers, here's a cool band, don't you want to do this? And it's actually rebuilding slowly a lot in the last 5 years. We've come a long way in North Florida specifically, but this is all going to go back. All that scheduling stuff goes to the state, goes to the Board of Education. Principals are in control of their building. If they want it to happen, then they will make it happen, and they'll find a way to skirt the rules or whatever. So that's sort of how you, as a teacher, learn to navigate. You got to figure out what they have to do. So I said, what does the principal need to happen? Okay, how can I offer an alternative that will allow band to happen and also allow them to check those other boxes and present the solution or the discussion of a solution, and then it's more likely to happen, if that makes sense. And I get a lot of things done that way. It's like, well, I know you need this 95% testing rate or whatever. Here's this plan I came up with. Why don't you take a look at it? And we talk back and forth, and then all of a sudden I have an 8th period percussion class. So like it's just sort of playing the game, as you will. And there's a really great comment somebody made about taking Mr. Wright talking about having a market budgeting, but add grant writing and all these other back of house skills.
Ooh, yes.
How do you learn what's going on at the state? How do you learn what the auditing rules are? How do you learn what the band booster regulations and all that stuff is? Because you can figure out how to play an instrument. You can figure out how to teach someone how to play an instrument, and you got plenty of time to make mistakes and whatever. But that money stuff and talking your way out of a schedule, talking your way out of a band class, talking your way into general music with 80 kids in it is going to talk your way out of a job or work your way out of a job with stuff you don't know.
So having a marketing class, like for real, like having a marketing class, and having classes on grant writing, like I didn't have a budget at all. I've never had a budget until last school year when I transferred to a whole different district. But all 15 years of my time in my former district, there was never a budget. And I learned how to write grants only because I was desperate. And I was like, I got to get stuff. Like, I can't teach kids if I don't have stuff to teach them with. I don't care if it's general music. So, Freeman, we got give KT a chance to talk. We're gonna just keep going around the circle, like this. We're saying we definitely need a marketing and grant writing, a music business class added to that undergrad experience. No matter what your major, even if it's performance, you need it. If it's music education, you need it. If it's music production, you need it. So that's definitely a class that could be added. KT, what you got for us?
So speaking on what you were just talking about, so I can speak from my master's experience. So going over there to UNCSA, just those classes, like you said, we had like majority of our classes were like your master class, your lessons, your performing ensembles. But like I guess you would consider academic. We had auditions class where you learn how to audition. You learned the process of submitting the application, submit your resume, how it should look. We got the audition in front of the Winston-Salem Symphony director. We got the audition in front of some other famous artistic directors. Then we had a recording class where we learned how to actually record ourselves, how to, edit, splice, what kind of equipment. We had just those classes that taught us. And then when I think about my education experience, we kind of do need those classes. Like I feel like we need a business of band, business of music ed, something like that, where you talk about if you don't have a budget, how to write grants, how to do the business aspect as far as like, advocate for money, support, just different things like that. Because I know for me, my first job, until we got the concession stand stuff where it needed to be, because that was a fight my first year. A lot of the stuff I needed from my group, I bought. I just paid for it out of my pocket because I was like, my kids are going to have an experience and I can't wait on, just the bureaucracy and all these different things. Like my kids are here. They want to learn. They're excited to learn. So it's a sacrifice on my end, but just to see them want to be there and continue to show up, I felt like that was worth it in the end. So I agree. I feel like there needs to be a revamp of, and then the one thing that I wish they would change as well is when people go student teach, they put us in the most optimal class A first class experience, but 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get that experience in your first job. So then I think that's what also discourages a lot of people when they go into the field, because they're like, oh, I had such an awesome experience. I was able to be in front of 2 or 3 different concert ensembles. The kids practice. It was all these it was, like I said, it was the optimal experience. But when we go out here and we have to go to, such and such rural county, whereas one high school with 4 small cities, but everybody is below this socioeconomical status. So it's just a whole lot of different things that you have to deal with. But when you was in your student teaching experience, you didn't have those challenges. So I just think there needs to be a way of, if they're going to have us do these clinicals and observations, I feel like you should get a taste of everything.
Sure. I agree. Currently I manage student interns. I have a student intern now, and often within the first month they're reconsidering their major after being with me, because I'm not in optimal situations. Even though I'm in a performing arts school now, it's a performing arts school of students who are disadvantaged. That was the purpose of making it a performing arts school. It's not the performing arts school in the affluent community. It's performing arts school where a lot of kids start the first time they actually got lessons and whatever is in our program in high school. And we're just giving them so many resources just to catch them up. So you said some big hitters right there. One, music technology. Ooh. I made a lot of money off y'all during the pandemic. I ain't even gonna front. And the only reason I made that money is because I spent a lot of time taking those technology classes people weren't trying to take. I was taking them just because I was interested, because I felt outnumbered in the classroom. Technology became a assistant band director to me in a lot of cases. But that budget writing, never knew how to do it. Marketing, grant writing, didn't know how to do it until I had to try to figure it out. You said another one that was community engagement. Someone said in the chat, agency, how to get people to advocate. We need a music advocacy or arts advocacy course, because a lot of times you just gonna be talking to people who don't get it. We are in college and undergrad with people who get it. And then we leave and our principal is a science major. They don't get it. Dan,
and this is a great way for these colleges and universities to engage with the communities around them by sending these music advocacy students out to the band parent meetings, to the school board meetings, to the things like that, and practice these skills that they're using, and even involving them. So let's call it music administration class, right? I'm teaching a college level music administration class. They got to take it every freaking semester. They're a music ed major, let's say, and I'm looking for content. Well, just right into my budget to pay these high school, middle school, and elementary teachers in my area and gather their material. You know, for $150, will you give me the last 10 years of your syllabuses or whatever, you know, so that I can use them in a secondary methods class or whatever, you know, and really get the community level involved, because there's a huge disconnect. You know, our colleges, they come to me every now and again. They'll send me a guy every now and again, but if there was a music advocacy class and you had 20, 30 some odd music ed majors engaging on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Mastodon, wherever we're going now, and engaging in meetings, engaging in parents, you know, just doing even stuff that they could just do at home on their laptop, you know, and highlight what something Seth said back here about a multicultural communication class, right? So I teach at a English second language center school. There are 44 languages spoken in my school, and in my beginning band class, there are about 5 or 6 languages, and most of them know English, but there's about 5 or 6 kids who know English, including one who speaks a language called Mom that I've never heard of before. It's a Guatemalan Mayan offshoot dialect, and she knows, not only does she know no English, she also knows no Spanish, even though they're from Guatemala. And I find out, and you saw me, we were commenting about this on the other day in the Facebook group, I really refined my teaching since coming to the school, because I don't talk. You know, I it's show you how's this go together. Let's do our fingers like this, slow down a lot, right? And kind of really distill all that stuff into a neat little package where the language is not, you're learning a new language now. The language is not a part of the conversation.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I teach a piano class, and 90% of my students are ESOL students. And if you don't know, that's English as a second language, or English language learners who are immigrants within sometimes days, weeks, or hours in the country. Let me say that, hours. So there is a whole socialization that a lot of my students don't have. I teach a basic piano class. There is no way I can just be in there speaking what my first language is, because culturally, a lot of my students don't get it. I had to find a Spanish textbook, a Spanish music book. And I didn't realize that in other cultures, notation is built off of solfege.
Fixed.
I didn't know until I got this book. So now I'm teaching. And what's bad is that was one of my weakest areas, because I was a secondary music education major, which meant a lot of those elementary pedagogical skills that people get as elementary ed, I need right now that I don't have. So that revamping, we've named some courses that maybe some of us need to go start teaching some of these courses. We need music advocacy. We need a marketing business class that is specified to what it is that we teach.
Hey, Krystal.
Yeah.
Trying to find a check.
Sure.
Every one of those courses that you named, I've taken those courses in my doctoral program.
I've taken them in grad school.
Community partnerships,
It's too late.
Being able to partner with not only within the school, but outside of the school as well.
Yeah. Those are the courses I took.
The collegiate
undergrad.
There's a course at Liberty that I took. It was a couple of courses. One was called the College Music Educator, and it talked about getting a budget together. Well, one was talking about, you know, being a collegiate professor, and then there was another course, I think, Issues in Music Education. That was the one. And this was a hard one, because I had to I went on and talked about my high school, and I had to talk about, you know, some of the things that's going on there, because a lot of my classmates in that course, a lot of them taught in very, very small districts to where all of the students attend that school. Where, Jacksonville, that's one of the largest districts in the state. So I had to focus on one high school feeder program. And I studied, I had to do reins. And, it was a lot, I had to go, there was a lot going on, with, the feeder programs and things like that. So these are the things that on the undergraduate level, they need to know. They need to know the tricks behind FTE numbers. That means having enough students to even make a classroom or even get a full-time position. See, these are the things that they need to understand. And then writing, your budget. Not only writing a budget for your school, but writing a budget for all the music teachers in that district, assigning teachers to certain schools and giving them adding, FTE numbers up.
And see, I didn't understand that until my AP Music Theory class got dropped after getting certified and spending money on a class. I couldn't even teach the class because that FTE number was below what the administration felt was worthy of having a class. It was going to be 9 students. They said you got to at least have 15 students in this AP Music Theory class to have a class. I got to throw this question in here because we haven't touched it. We tapped at it. Instrumental methods classes. Should we keep things the same or should we be different? I'll say for me, I teach woodwind 2 semesters, clarinet and saxophone. And then in the spring, I teach double reeds and flute, autonomous from clarinet and saxophone. And KT will probably understand specifically why my classes, by request, I asked to have my method classes a year long versus a semester. And my brass method that I'm teaching now, I teach all trumpet, baritone tuba, or euphonium tuba. And then in the spring, trombone is separate with is trombone and French horn. Same kind of mindset. With the woodwind methods classes, I teach all the methods classes now. And there's a reason I did that. And there's a reason I have a woodwind clinic Wednesday, shameless plug. I don't know. Should we keep things the same or should some changes be? And what should they be? KT.
So I agree. I do feel like the method classes should be 2 semesters. I feel like, especially I'm thinking about the vocal majors, the percussion majors, just people who don't normally play wind instruments. I feel like they're trying to learn how to do it, and then you want to cram all 5 woodwind instruments, all 5 brass instruments. I think that they should be 2 semesters because I feel like that'll give more time to be able to get everybody through, learning how to play the instrument, especially if it's something that's new to them, on top of being able to make sure they're understanding those foundational basics so that they can take that into their toolbox to remember when they go to teach, versus it being accelerated. It's just like, okay, we're going to spend 3 weeks on the clarinet. All right, next 3 weeks on the saxophone, et cetera, et cetera. So I do wish that they would be more than a semester. 2 semesters, I think, is more than enough. I think that will give, like I said, people more of an opportunity to be able to really grasp and hold on and remember and really make those connections.
And that length of time, if you're a woodwind player, but if you're not, like I have string students in my woodwind method class, the concept of air is not there. And most students who teach strings gonna have to teach a wind ensemble class. Mm-hmm. Like it's seldom that, especially in our urban areas, that there is an orchestra program or a string program. Right. So that's I like it for the year long, but then do we have enough time? Like that's what I keep hearing. Is there enough time to teach that, Dan?
So think about the instrument families, right? And I always joke with my beginning band class, if I take this clarinet and I turn it sideways, it looks a lot like a flute. If I press the register key, even some of those fingerings look exactly the same. So I was sitting here thinking, you know, for things that are in family, so your woodwinds and your brass, spending a longer time on learning as much fundamental skill as you can on one instrument, and then a little bit less time on some others, but you've had this fundamental woodwind skill to a high level. If you're not a woodwind player, right? If you're a woodwind player, it can be a little bit different because you already have 12 plus years of playing flute. So a woodwind player who comes into college playing clarinet, if they've never doubled before, they'll get it pretty quick, right? You know, it's there's a lot of transfer. But and the other thing, music education majors, right? So what never happened in my method courses is here's what you do on day one with instruments in your class, all right? And before the class, I'm going to talk to Ken and say, hey, Ken, when we go to put this mouthpiece together, I want you to put the reed on backwards. I want you to put the ligature on upside down for me, okay? And then whatever, and then simulate that in the class and have that experience of, okay, everybody, when you put the clarinet together, make sure this transfer joint or whatever, and have people pretend to be sixth graders. Like you have to do that sort of and have that plan and experience what that's going to be like in the methods class. And there's a lot of talk about percussion in the comments, and that was my weakest area. And that's my weakest area. We did keyboards, marimba, xylophone type situation. We did some snare. No conversation about marching bass instruments. No conversation about many of the toys and how they function. I mean, that you could spend a day on the toys, at least overview, right? And then we would get somewhere, right? But I'm sitting here trying to figure out best way to make a triangle. And as you become a good musician, you say, okay, well, I need to try different, right? I need to try different. And as you become an older, experienced musician, you understand that you need to try different. And that's what kids often don't do. That's why kids are almost always the weaker musicians than an adult, because an adult has tried enough stuff to know, let me just move over a little bit, switch a little bit, change a little bit, and I'll get a different sound. The kid is like, I'm going to do the same thing that I've always done, and I'm not going to change, and I'm going to expect a different outcome. But, you know, so brass and woodwinds, you know, there needs to be differentiation based on the primary instrument of the person that they come in, right? I don't think a native clarinet player needs to sit 8 weeks through clarinet, unless it's going to be, here's how you teach a class of 30 clarinet players how to do clarinet, because that's something they would not have done, right? But if it's just, here's how you play clarinet, and we're going to squeak the whole time and talk about super advanced reed cutting and sanding the reed and all the stuff that you're going to forget immediately after you leave this room, like, I don't know that they need to sit through that.
KT.
I would say, like, in instances like that, when you have woodwind players, I feel like that would be for the professor to utilize them to be able to, like, maybe assist, especially if it's like a larger class. Because I know that, like, when I was going through mine, that was kind of, especially like clarinet and saxophone, I would get kind of asked to, like, help and assist and things like that. And then, like, some of my classmates would ask me for help and things of that nature. So I feel like it kind of sucks having to sit through class woodwinds, but it also gives you an opportunity to be able to make sure that, you know, because like we said before, just because you can play the instrument doesn't mean you necessarily know how to teach it.
And that, just to tag in, I was going to say that for years, my worst section were with clarinets, and I couldn't figure it out. It's like, why y'all suck? And then I realized I didn't know how to teach clarinet. I knew how to play clarinet. And so I think method classes need to really be about how do you teach it, not whether or not you can play. And I have some students freaking out right now because they can't play 5 notes on trumpet because they play strings and they just can't get that concept of buzzing. I was like, you just need the words. You need to know what words to say. Like, you should be able to demonstrate. And that's going to take way more hours than in my method class. I had that conversation 2 weeks ago. I said, if you want me to teach you how to play trumpet 1 day a week for the next 6 weeks, and then we got to switch to something else, you don't have enough time. You got this instrument. I encourage band directors, take out your weakest instrument in class and play on that every day with your students. Freeman hit me up all the time. Be like, hey, clarinet, Come on, sis, help me out. Is this right? Shout out to all the people I've seen on Facebook picking up that secondary instrument, because the method class is just to teach you the words and the do's and don'ts and the what to say. I can make a nasty percussionist, and I'm not really good at rudiments, but I can make some nasty percussion. Like, I've never had percussion that didn't know all 40. So
mind if I interject?
Please do.
Man, during my time at Jefferson Davis Middle, what I ended up doing is taking because I knew I was weak on teaching woodwinds, particularly flute and clarinet. So what I ended up doing, and when I was teaching in elementary school, because I remember that was the years I was hitting you up when I was teaching elementary band. What I ended up having to do is get on every instrument, get on that flute, get on that clarinet, get on the saxophone, and just practice making sounds. Practice with the tetrachord, with the first 5 notes of the scale. Practice getting a good sound, and take what you learn and then teach your students. Percussion. What I had to do is get up under every percussion guy that I know. There's a guy that lives across the street from me that's a percussion instructor. I got up under him 24/7. I got up under one of the guys as an ESE teacher that marched at Alabama State. You ought to know him, Dan, Gregory Beard. I got up under him, and he even assisted me, with percussion. And I get a lot of this from the band director at First Coast High School, Kenneth Solomon. I noticed that's what he did. So I was like, well, darn, why don't I just do this? He got on that bass clarinet, and he was playing when I went to work with his band during a symphonic one year. He was in there on the bass clarinet. So I said, you know what? I ought to do what he's doing. And come to find out, it works. It works because you're teaching. You're relating, you're getting that good sound, you're, relating everything to what you're doing, and then you're, instilling it to your students. So I think, that's the way to go. Learn it yourself, then teach them.
Yeah, you're right. And somebody said it on the chat, like, you gotta just go get one of them horns. Go to the go, online, get like a pawn shop instrument, go ask, somebody you march with. Hey, can I hold that flute? You still got your flute from college that you don't play on? Like, I have a whole basement of stuff. I have a marimba in my basement. I have marching drums because I learned this from I had Roosevelt Pratt in middle school. And there's a picture, and I'm gonna find it, I'm gonna post it. He would play anything with us. He would be sitting right behind us playing parts. One, that's a morale booster for students. 2, it keeps you honest. When you playing your primary instrument in class, that's not honest. Be in that hot seat with them kids. Flute, some of y'all do some egregious stuff to your flute players, and you don't know. You're asking them to play stuff that their fingers just haven't even learned how to play, and you just think because they're buttons to push. I hate that. Like, just because it's buttons to push don't mean that there isn't a technique behind it. So right. Shout out to y'all who do spend time on a horn, and that has to be modeled undergrad too. If your professor never touching that instrument, I know a lot of people like, you teaching brass methods. Yeah, I'm teaching brass methods. Why? Because that's what I play most of the time in a classroom with my students. I play the instrument that's furthest away from what I do. We got to switch gears, man. First of all, I'm appreciating the conversation. Just to let y'all know, y'all doing all right. Y'all like, oh my God, it's stressful. So now we talking about method classes. I got to put the P word out there, and it's not P-Valley, and it's not nothing like that. Praxis. So here's the question coming up. Should the Praxis teacher assessment test be thrown out for music ed majors? I've heard this a lot. That is irrelevant. We don't need it. And what curricular additions or subtractions would you want to see changed? I said HBCU, but I got to change that. It's only the first part of that question. So do you think it's relevant? Do we think we need it, or should something else be used?
If that's the case, you probably need to just take out those standards, and you take out those requirements for any other teacher that teaches outside of music in any other academic field. Because you can't do that for music unless and not do that for the people who are certified in reading and ELA, or the person who's certified in math or science or reading, or ELA reading.
Dan, what was you gonna say?
One, I'm only tangentially aware of what the praxis is. We don't have that in Florida. We have an in-house certification system, and it's similar. It's the same kind of idea. I agree that if once you start not requiring a standardized test across subject areas, then it creates a us versus them thing that particularly elementary music teachers already face, art teachers already face, because they're not classroom teachers. In general, my just general opinion, not knowing much about praxis, is that these standardized certification tests administered by third-party companies, designed by third-party companies, always have problematic racial and equity bias and inequity going on in there, and it's very difficult to standardize something that is not itself standardized. So, how do you teach clarinet? What reeds do you start them on? How do you teach reading? How do you teach music reading? You use takadimi, ta 1 and 2, and how do you teach? What order do you teach music theory concepts in? There's no standardization, really. We can talk about curriculum all you want. You can get 10 different method books, and they all start 10 different ways, and they're all different. So when you get a praxis test that says, how soon in the year should the kid know a quarter note? Well, I don't know when he knows the freaking quarter note. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's on that. I don't know what's on that question. But, on the FTCE, I don't know if I'm legally allowed to talk about the questions, but there's a girl singing on there, and they say it's like a 5-year-old singing, and they're like, "What's wrong with this recording?" And I was like, "Well, I can think of 10 things, and you want me to just pick one, right?" So they're all games. Pearson, Praxis, whoever the company is. I think we need to get away from education. Needs to somehow get away from the monopolization of testing from companies in general.
This is about money. Like, it's about money, and they make billions of dollars off of school districts for standardized testing. Like, I don't know why we lying about it. It really is about money. It keeps money coming in. It is a cash cow, and they're not going to get. Well, the reason I brought it up, because a lot of districts are now getting rid of the praxis. A lot of states are getting rid of because they can't get teachers. Grace said in the chat, it's a roadblock for many.
I assume it's a high cost.
It costs. Oh God, I passed it the first try because I didn't want to pay for it again. It wasn't even so much like, what, I didn't really study for it. I had really strong theory. The praxis is mostly music theory, and we'll say westernized music theory, not really any world music examples whatsoever, which is now kicking me in the butt for this piano class. But praxis is full of hypotheticals, and there's no real way to study for it. That's kind of the kicker. Out of all of the praxis tests, I feel like the arts ones are the most elusive, because it's like, I used to train people. I used to do what Dr. Tamisha Brock, shout out to her, and what she does as a part of her passion and her position is that she gets people past praxis. I used to tutor people for praxis, and I always got them through it. But you know what I did? I just got a music history book and a method book, and I said, we're going to go through this thing A through Z. And that's the only way. Like, you literally have to know a method book backwards and forwards. And then even the listening, if you didn't come from a strong wind ensemble, string ensemble, performing ensemble, your ear is not really trained sometimes to hear what they want you to hear. Like, I tutored someone, and they were like, it all sounds good to me. If you got beginners, every all you have are beginners, or you get college music majors who only been playing for one year from high school or 2 years, like what I used to teach. A lot of my kids only been playing 2 years. Their ears aren't at intonation level at the same rate as someone who started in the 4th and 5th grade. They don't have that same fine-tuned ear training alone. So you're giving them a whole segment, because Praxis has 2 parts. There's content, and then there's the kind of like an error detection ear training portion. And even that, if you haven't come from a strong program that teaches some of those principles that you'll find in Praxis, you're going to fail. So I don't know. Anybody else got something to say? Praxis, what should be on it?
For the national board certified whatever, you have to send in teaching videos, you have to send in lesson plans, you have to send in artifacts, you have to send in whatever. And I know it's a lot of work, but that seems like a hell of a lot better way to certify a teacher and guarantee, every district has a cutoff, 90-day, 180-day, get out of here, you don't know what you're doing sort of back out clause. I don't know that a standardized, I don't know that it's a conditionary contracts. I don't know that a standardized test proves anything other than that the person studied for the test and knows basically very superficial knowledge. Doesn't really mean that they're equipped or qualified or safe even to teach a class. I think you could easily do away with it, accept the degree from the university that we've just paid however many thousands of dollars for, and say, okay, we're going to observe you in your first year and see what you're doing, and then that will lead into how well you're able to articulate what you're doing and what it looks like. If they don't understand what band, choir, or whatever it is you're doing is supposed to look like, then that's another whole other thing where you can talk yourself out of a job. But I think studying artifacts, studying teaching videos, studying interaction with the kids, and studying the way that you communicate with parents and things like that is going to way more demonstrate your content area knowledge, because it's how you disseminate it to people who aren't.
That's an excellent idea. Like, why am I gonna spend? It's like $1,200 to, like, it's a lot of money to be national board certified. But to be honest, it's such a better rubric and assessment for what it is that teachers actually do. It's just sad that that's kind of the cart pulling the horse of what. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, you have to know how to do lesson plans. You have to understand the curriculum. You have to collect artifacts to get recertified in a lot of districts across the United States and beyond. So it just doesn't make sense to put so much emphasis on that. To me, this is my analogy with it. It's like when you learn how to drive, you have to have a certain amount of hours before you can even be eligible to take the road test. License. You have to have hours. You have to get that stamp daddy before you can get in that car daddy, and then they don't even parallel park anymore. But you
have to have that before you even get a restricted license.
Right. And then you get a restricted license until you're like 18 in a lot of states. Like, that's how Maryland is. So
Florida 16.
It doesn't make sense. Actually, it just doesn't make sense. Here it's 18. You don't get a frontal license until you're 18. That means that you have a curfew on your license. You can't go do certain things. You can't be out too late. It's just a whole lot with that conditional. It's a conditional license here until you're 18. So you can take the book.
There's a lot of standards and requirements that other states have, and some states don't. Like, say, for instance, Maryland, Virginia, particularly in Virginia, in Maryland too, from what I'm hearing. You cannot even teach at a secondary school without a master's degree.
Pretty much. You got about 5 years before you can't bump up to the next certificate without enough credits that is like a master's equivalent or better. That's why a lot of us up here got like multiple degrees. We don't have no choice if we want to stay teaching. But I'll say this, they pay us better.
Exactly.
They pay us better. So it kind of makes it worth it. But like, back to the road test, if we just read the book, took that online test, like 20 questions, and they said, here's a picture, go get on the road, we kill people. And I feel like that's another show. I feel like we are killing the hopes and dreams of some potential strong musicians, music educators, music therapists, because we get out on the road too early. That's why I'm an advocate for certification. I ain't gonna say the process is right 100%, but there definitely should be a process, because some of us are on the road killing the hopes and dreams of children because we don't have anything that boxes us into what's right and equitable for what we do. That's my shameless plug. Somebody gonna say you capping, somebody gonna say all other stuff. No, I'm not.
Here's the thing with that though. A lot of, even when you're taking these, doing these PLCs, professional learning communities, and you're getting these in-service hours and stuff, because a lot of those in-service hours, especially here in our district, it goes towards your certification. Like I got to take a 20-hour music ESC course, and I got to finish it up before I can renew. And, and it's a lot of things that, workshops and stuff that we do during our in-district in-service, during, our planning time, even did guitar workshops. That's how I ended up learning how to play guitar. Through a guitar workshop, it was a guy from Florida State that came over and taught us the ones that, who weren't experienced in guitar. So, you got a lot of stuff that you can do to, replenish, what you're missing out on with the your requirements for, certification, instead of, taking a certification test. And some of this stuff you may not even teach your children, like some of this stuff dealing with, what was Picasso's, influence, with his painting cubism. And, a lot of these other things. Now, some things, they do, I can understand, the questioning, but others, some of this stuff, even with, some of this stuff with music education as a whole, you're not going to even teach some of these kids, and you're not even going to use it. Even, the part writing, part writing for Bach chorales, you're not even going to use that. So especially if you're arranging for a jazz band, you're arranging for marching band, particularly HBCU style marching band, you're using chord extensions. Some people are you doubling fifths and doubling in parallel unison in certain cases. It all depends on what you're trying to do. That's what I'm saying. In order to get the understanding of what's going on, you have to look at the history of music education in this country as a whole, starting with Lowell Mason, starting with these people coming over from England. And, because the first settlers of America, English settlers of America, did not know a lick of music. They did not know how to read. They couldn't even sing and stay in tune. So they had to have, singing schools. They had to implement singing schools. They had to have people come over from England to teach, to formally, to have formal training. It's a lot to unpack. So let me just, right.
I'm telling you, this can be a part 2, part 3, part 7. It could be like Fast and Furious for music education, because there's just so much we can talk about with music education. I got to move on to this question because this, for me, hits home. It hits home because there's a lot of controversy behind this question. And the question is there too much emphasis placed on the performing ensemble from music majors?
Not really.
I'm going to say no. And the only reason I'm going to say no is because part of what you were saying earlier about your ear being developed when it comes to the listening part of the praxis, the performer ensembles is, I feel like, the skills that you learn as somebody who's in the chair playing the instrument. You're not only learning as a performer, you're learning as somebody who's working with a team. You're watching your conductor, because you can talk about stuff in conducting class all day, but it's different when it's the class, the people in the class, and they're talking about it versus you're sitting in the ensemble and you're actually witnessing what's happening. So I feel like there isn't enough. I feel like there should be more emphasis, but I feel like you have to be strategic in what is taking place in your performing ensembles. That makes the difference.
Dan?
The college music performing ensemble should look very much like a really good high school music performing ensemble, the class setting, that is. It's just harder stuff, right? So if it's music education that's happening in that band room, then then yes, right? Is there a conversation happening, or are we just sit there rehearsing and then leaving, right? Banging through the parts, banging through whatever. So that the same level of conversation. Do you hear this lack of intonation? Clarinets, do you hear this lack of intonation? Can we bring this up? Trumpets, can we do this? Can we do that? Having those like conversations outside of just rehearsing the band, right? But I think you need to be in an ensemble because that's how you develop the musicianship skills that you're going to use later when your kid can't play in a straight tempo, but you can speed up and slow down and keep playing that duet part with them, for example, where you can adjust the pitch of your instrument so that they don't sound just slightly as bad because you can bring your pitch down to out of tune land where they are. Those are the skills that you develop just by time on the horn doing that. And the other thing is just two things I say a lot. One, you can't choose what you don't know. So if you haven't played a variety of literature, you won't know a variety of literature, and most music ensembles in colleges should play more variety of literature. You should be playing middle school and high school literature in the college music, even if it's just a day of reading, just so that you're familiar with it, what exists, and along with your your Holst and your other whatever, you should diversify whatever, but and you can only bring the kids where you yourself can go. So if you had 1 year of concert band and you didn't really have a whole lot of concert band, you just haven't been in the concert band experience for long enough to really be able to survive on your own doing it. Because all you've had at this point is your high school, maybe your middle school, your high school, and then one semester we're talking of college band. You want to see the diversity, especially music education. You should be in a different band room every day. Like you should see the diversity and see where it's being done differently.
And here's the thing: I did a interview in my class, one of my music classes, the college music educator, and I did an interview as an assignment with Dr. Kevin Davenport, who's the band director, who's the director of bands at Simmons College in Louisville, Kentucky. And one of the things he said that a lot of what you're going to learn as a band director is going to take place in that band room, even when you're a music major. A lot of what you're going to learn is what you're going to see in what you're going to be looking at in the band room. A lot of stuff that how I teach with certain things, especially with notation and everything, I learned it from Mr. Portier and Mr. Ore. Particularly dealing with difficult syncopations and difficult rhythms. I just observed the way Mr. P taught it, a difficult passage. And then I want to go in and implement it with my high school kids or my middle school kids. Just have them take the music page, take the rhythm and put it on the board without the rest, and then add a rest at a time on a beat, on the upbeat, on the downbeat. See, those are the type of things I saw in Bethune-Cookman's band room with Mr. Portier when he went over a lot of his arrangements. So, it's a lot of what you're going to learn, like what Dr. Davenport said, a lot of what you're going to learn in that band room, a lot of what you're going to learn as a band director or even a choral director, you're going to learn that during your band and choral rehearsals. You're going to learn that watching your director of bands or watching your assistant director.
What's crazy, one, Kevin Davenport lives at the end of my street. I kid you not, he lives at the end of my block. Because he commutes. A lot of people don't know he commutes to Simmons.
Dr. Davenport.
Yeah. So he's my neighbor. And I've known him for a long time. And he's a wealth of knowledge. And you're so right. The band room is in practice. Like my high school band that I just left a year ago, we had a saying, creating only the best in theory and in practice. And it's that band room you are doing what you study and you are in the lab. Like I used to call my beginning band class a lab band class. It's in theory, but it's only in practice until you're doing it. However, devil's advocate, we all know that every band room ain't created equal. We know that emphasis on one ensemble over the other causes deficiencies. I'm gonna raise my hand in a deficiency I didn't want, but I got caught by the girls can't do this. And it was jazz band. Like, if you're going to be, and part of that is because for a while when I was starting out teaching, they still wasn't putting women in band, high school band and up positions. Like, it was still like pulling teeth. People literally told me, get ready to push that cart around the school because that's what you're going to do. And then I got at high school and the premier ensemble was what? Jazz band. I was like, what the? I got told, no, undergrad, just do classical clarinet. And then I end up having to run a jazz band. And you're teaching on fire at that point. I had to go spend some time, some summertime, some off the clock time with the educator who was notorious for his jazz band, Charles Fun, retired 2 years ago. Charles Fun has had one of the best jazz bands I'd ever heard. His kids could apply the theory. They would run around the circle of fifths in jazz band on licks. They could play in any key. And I was like, where was that for me? I was great at playing Holst, Tchaikovsky. I was great at playing all those orchestral excerpts. But then when it came time to make some money playing, they're not calling a bunch of clarinets, KT. They calling the person who could double on saxophone. And I had to buy a saxophone. And then grad school, I picked up saxophone. I took lessons. I paid for it. But I was like, where was this opportunity? Jazz is one of those things that we ignore. And unfortunately, culturally, even at my university, I don't see anybody that looks like me playing the music that was created by me. That's disheartening. Or sometimes in the public school setting, they'll want a jazz band, but not understand how much higher order music skills you have to have for jazz. Like, this is not just, based off of major and minor tonality. You got to know modes. And I am now, only because I'm a music theory teacher, only because that I can apply it. I got a gig coming up and y'all gonna find out hopefully in the next 2 weeks. Big gig. I was never prepared for this gig. Never prepared. If I didn't take it on my own to learn some of this stuff. So all ensembles are not created equal. And everybody's not teaching their band ensemble, even concert band, like it is a music education setting. Dan, you hit the nail on the coffin with that. Everybody's not doing it. Freeman.
Now, the thing about it, now I'm just getting into the, to the point to where, I'm really listening to jazz and everything. And I wish I would have been in the jazz band at Bethune, but, I even asked, the jazz band director to be in. He was telling me, well, since you're a baritone, you can't really be in it because you're amateur. But then again, I haven't looked at some band direct. I haven't looked at some footage of some baritone, some euphonium players, some baritone players doing some nasty improv on in some of these jazz band pieces. Even though that's not the typical jazz band instrument, it's more of a standard concert and marching band instrument. You still see this. People go outside above, beyond their horizons instead of, what they're used to. They go at, what would work. They're unique in those ways. But the thing about it, I wrote my first, I think what was now last year, Rashad, asked me to write a jazz band arrangement of Bruno Mars. So I had to, this is my first time ever writing a jazz band piece. And I've written, in my arranging class in grad school, I wrote stuff for stage band, for praise and worship band. So I had to do it with, use lead sheets and things like that. And then you got to understand, the jazz tonality. You got to understand how to use chord extensions and, and embellishments and things like that, to make that pop. But I think that, it's a good opportunity to learn about jazz studies and learn about improvisation, because that's one of the standards, even in the elementary curriculum, even in the ORF, teaching, improvisation, teaching them to explore. And that's basically what jazz is about. It's about creativity. But all in all, I think when I started the master's program, one of the first things I've learned about is the philosophies of music by Dr. Bennett Reamer and David Elliott, and they talked about praxio music education versus aesthetics of music education. practicing music and make music as a practice, musicking, and then you have aesthetics of music education, being able to listen to music and appreciate music as an art. And one was putting one over the other, but I think all of it should be combined. We got to have an area, have to appreciate it for its beauty, but at the same time, we have to practice in whatever way, whatever level, we must, put music into practice as well. So,
and that leads me to, I got it. We've been talking, I don't know, for an hour and 30 minutes. So I got to start throwing the last questions in here. One, I just think that you can't teach what you don't know.
Yeah.
Not well, anyway. You can learn it, but there's such an advantage to having experience sitting in that seat that I didn't have afforded to me with jazz. I had it in marching band. I had it in concert band, absolutely equivalently, in my opinion. But jazz was kryptonite and still is. And I promise I get more gigs doing jazz genre music than anything. And I'm like, I could have been making money. I was broke. And it's not that I didn't have the ability. It's just the opportunity. Second to the last question. Depends on how fast we answer it. Because I don't want to hold up Luke, because he kind of under the weather and he keep the show running. So I want to be respectful to this man who's behind the scenes. I hope you feel all right. All right, last question. Second to last, sort of kind of last. I don't know. Does the attention on marching band culture through social media give music majors the wrong idea about the profession? Casey, go ahead. You saw that. You saw that question.
Absolutely. I feel like, especially like when I was teaching, I used to have to always tell my students, I'm like, y'all, the band program is just not the marching band. And I think that because of that, and they see your Jackson State and your FAMU and Bethune-Cookman and Southern and all these different marching bands that are just so prevalent on these different pages, I appreciate that people realize that is just part of the culture that's not going to go anywhere. But I think there needs to be some kind of education or kind of awareness for them to say, like, yes, this is what you see, this is what's out there, but it's a total band program. And I think a lot of times when the kids go to audition or they try to step to the next level, they're intimidated because they're like, oh, so we just don't march all year. But I think that also starts back at the high school level too. You have to foster that culture of it's a comprehensive music education program. It's just not we bang drums and shake tail all year long. And I feel like there are some band directors, because I've experienced it, where they be like, well, such and such do that, but listen to how they sound. Because in marching band, I tell people all the time, it's only but so much you can learn on Back That Thing Up. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but so much you can learn playing Back That Thing Up or Big Ballin' or ESPN. Like, the purpose of concert band is for you to be able to be exposed to various styles, various genres, various composers, because all composers don't write the same. So just learning the different types of, people write syncopation different, they write rhythm different. So just all those different things, you're able to, really get down to the meat and potatoes of the skills that you're doing well, you're not doing well, the development, just kind of bringing things forward. So I just think that there needs to be an awareness piece that, yes, I appreciate that it's a culture that is staying relevant, but we have to make sure that we're saying that this is just part of the band program at whatever university. We also have wind ensemble, symphonic band, jazz band, woodwind ensemble, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it just needs to be more of an awareness piece as far as that goes.
And here's the thing. With these bands, that's the reason why I thank God for the HBCU Symphonic Band Consortium, because it shows HBCUs in another light. It's not just about the marching band, and I think that they need to exploit the concert bands of HBCUs a lot more, especially if you're at a predominantly Black high school or your program marches the HBCU style. You're showing Cookman clips and showing FAMU clips and Southern clips. You need to show the symphonic bands of these schools to let them know that we can play concerted music. We don't just play hip hop and R&B. We can play Tchaikovsky. We can play James Swearingen and Samuel Hazel compositions, Robert Smith compositions. We can play all that. We can play different types of music. We're not just a dance band. We're not just a juke band or quote unquote monkey band. We're a band that can play all music. We're musicians.
And I think what you're saying, like that, we are trying to create well-rounded individuals who are prepared to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I, with confidence now, even with jazz, can say I can go teach anywhere. I can teach on any level. I can teach. I know it because I've taken enough classes. I sat under enough people who study it and have given me that information that I can survive anywhere. But there's that piece, that admin ignorance. That admin ignorance is like a destroyer. It's like a torpedo to a program. I had a lawyer who opened up her own charter school, my second teaching gig. And she asked me for a marching band, middle school. That's what she said. She said, I want a marching band. I was like, okay, that's great. I could do that. But what about concert band? And she went to Harvard. Black woman, educated, did like this. Why would we want that? I said, because we're in the middle of Baltimore City, but the BSO is down the street. Don't you want the kids to believe that can be them too? Mm-hmm. I mean, she was so happy with a drum line and girls in tutus. Let's just say I didn't make it through the year. Because there was that part of me that wanted more. I had fun making marching band. I always had a marching band, even teaching middle school, but they could do everything. We had jazz band gigs. We had concert band gigs. Like, I would just take them out to perform because I wanted to be well-rounded. But that admin thing is killing us. Dan, you had something to say?
I don't understand why people take marching band so seriously. And there's many high schools that take
recruitment tool.
Well, but you could have other recruitment tools, So,
Mm-hmm.
And this goes back to the last question. Well, what's the problem in band in relation to musicianship? What's the problem in choir in relation to musicianship? Is it erases the individuality, right? You're in the group. You're not an individual. You're a person. Even if you got a little solo, fit in the group, blend in, balance, or whatever. And that's what jazz band doesn't do, right? Jazz band highlights soloistic playing. Jazz band highlights being different, cutting the grain, breaking the rules, or whatever. And we get really good at doing this band thing, and you all listen to me, and I'm, the sage on the stage or whatever. And then high schoolers graduate not feeling like musicians. They can't play their trumpet on their own. They can't play their clarinet by themselves because they don't feel like they have that same thing. So yeah, marching band's a recruitment tool, but I get calls from nursing homes all the day who want people to come in and play, and I'm not going to bring a friggin' marching band in there to like go. You could increase the visibility of your program in your community a lot more if you had small ensembles, jazz bands, combos, and things like that you can say, go do this or go do that, or let's go do this in those settings that don't require 5 buses, 3 buses, 2 buses, 1 bus, and 30 kids in uniform and earplugs, right? And many colleges don't even take marching band that seriously. It's just something that happens at the football games, maybe at some other sports games, and you never see or hear from them again after that, right? It's during that specific time of the season, and they're not putting $15,000 in electronics out onto the field and hatching eggs and exploding volcanoes. And it's where is the education piece of it musically, but going to the admin too, this is what I talked about when we were talking about these classes. What was this 5 classes we mentioned that college majors should take? How do you talk to your admin? Because if you say, what about concert band? They're going to be like, oh, well, because you can't choose what you don't know, right? So if they don't know what a concert band or why, then of course they're going to be like, I just need a marching band. And then you say, let me tell you what a comprehensive band program would look like. Let me show you what a comprehensive band program would look like, and be ready to have that conversation. Learning to speak their language. That's my four-year semester music administration class pitch. That's what that's going to be, is how to have those conversations. Because it's not the kids. It's never the kids. You convince kids to do anything you want them to do.
Yes, you can.
It's the adults that are always standing in the way. But yeah, I think, marching band gets way too much focus, way too much attention. It's a detriment in many cases because people hyper focus, and they do nothing else, and they get so concerned that it won't be successful. And many people don't realize if you focus on the musicality throughout the year, you won't have to work on the marching band because anybody can play those tunes. Anybody can play those tunes.
Here's the thing, Dan. Here's the thing. And particularly dealing with black schools. Marching band is what put a lot of these kids most kids at black schools in the seats. As soon as they seen Bethune-Cookman, FAMU, or Southern, that's when these kids, and they found that they're playing the popular music, the dance routines and things. That's what got me in the seat at Paxton Middle under Mr. Donald Jenkins. That was my beginning band director. He's now the band director at Riverside High School. He's getting ready to retire. But my thing is, marching band, it all depends on the culture. It all depends on, what you're trying to do. And it all depends on, the region, how the community receives band.
I agree.
Here's the thing with, then again, you also have this side where you have, there was a certain composer, symphonic band composer, that made comments about the symphonic bands of black colleges and made comments about, black college bands. And then there was another guy that was on YouTube that talked about, their marching bands. And then they talked about, he tried to, make a case about their symphonic bands, but the footage that he put up really didn't help his case. And they're supposed to be sounding so bad that they don't have no fundamentals. Because one of the clips he posted up, the band sounded real good. But my thing is, you're going to get that type of stuff. You're going to get that type of stuff, and you're going to get this stuff. It's a give and take, man. Sometimes it's a catch-22. That's all I'm saying.
KT, and then back to Dan, and we gonna have to wrap up this question.
Okay. I just wanted to touch back because I saw Lauren kind of talked about it. I feel like comprehensive band programs, they're needed back because I've noticed when a lot of schools, especially like the big programs that were known back in the day, and I'm speaking more from North Carolina, I feel like when you had, I hate to say deliberate, but when you had deliberate redistricting of, cities and counties, it was almost like strategic to break up certain programs. So now you having where there are certain high schools that don't have a middle school feeder program, or the middle school feeder program is not the greatest, or the kids will start there and then they're told at the last minute, oh no, you're getting transferred or you're getting sent to this high school. So it's a lot of moving pieces that are
happening. Is collapsing some of these monster programs into something that will never be that size again, just the population.
And then another thing that's also killing it is these magnet schools, school of choice. All of those different things are now coming into play, which wasn't something that was really there when we were going through school in high school. Like, at least where I grew up, it's like you went to the middle school if you lived here, and then these 3 cities or wherever went to this high school, and you didn't really have other choice unless your parents wanted to pay all that money to go to a private school or the county academy that was like $26,000 a year. But now it's like these kids have so much choice. It's like, and everybody's pushing like, well, no, you need this to go to school. You need that to go to this college. You need this for this. So it's like band gets pushed way back on the list because now we're trying to push these AP classes and we're trying to push international baccalaureate and all these different things. So I feel that there needs to be some advocacy as a whole on why, band is important, because at least when I was in high school, a lot of us were the ones that were the top of our classes. We were in the top 15, 20% of our classes. And we were the ones that were, winning awards at the end of the year for academics. So it's just kind of interesting that they don't really see the purpose. And when you have a student that can multitask and use various different parts of their minds and bodies and different things like that, I just don't really think they understand what happens. And I can speak for me, at least, I had kids that maybe they act a fool in everybody else's class, but when they came to my class, it was something about band that
part
that behavior was on it was on top of it. They were focused, and we're sitting in the meeting and like, well, how come Jabari don't act like that in my class? Number one, Jabari already know I don't play that. That's number one. Two,
tell the truth.
Right. He know I don't play that. But on top of that, Jabari found an interest, and when he really showed the interest and was willing to behave and do what he needs to do, of course, I'm going to foster that, because hoping that that behavior that he does in my class, I can encourage him to do it in everybody else's. So they don't really understand, like, we can be advocates for your core classes and other things because we can figure out what the connection is that's making them behave, so that we can sit them and be like, hey, if you would give Jabari this, or understand that he's an oral learner, he's a kinesthetic learner, and you figure out a way to transfer that into your class, maybe you will have the success that you need for Jabari to act like he got some sense.
And that's interesting. We're cross-curricular by design. Mm-hmm. Just by design. Like, you don't, like, there was this big initiative of arts integration, which was, I'm not gonna say it's stupid, but by design, it's integrated. Like, just by it exists. Kayvon Ronalds just came on. Hey, brother. The topic is, do you now see? I done lost train of thought. What is the topic?
Too much focus on marching bands and
too much
media.
Focus on marching band. What do you think? Is there too much focus on marching band, as opposed to anything else? As far as, does it give a bad impression to music majors, like what they're supposed to do versus what they're gonna do?
I mean, from colleges, like for music majors, so I would say yes and no. Like, it depends on where you are. So for example, Jackson State. Now, being a music major, Jackson State, yeah, y'all finna be marching till by January or February. I mean, so sometimes yes, but for the most part, no. For those of us that are music majors that are gonna teach in the urban settings, I mean, marching band is kind of the big program, that attracts the kids. Now that's not saying that marching too much is right or wrong, but bottom line is, I mean, like, hood schools, I mean, we march a lot. I mean, so why not?
I don't think the problem is marching band as much as we don't know how to
elevate everything else.
Yeah. Like, I
started
started posting my spring concerts a few years ago, and I did it for a reason. My spring concerts used to have numbers of attendance between 800 to 1,000 people.
Okay.
It wasn't marching band. The first half was concert band, but I was very strategic in the music we played. Like, I did movie themes. I did stuff that was culturally relevant. And I don't think that, because I had this argument with people and they go into their fields and they start talking about, like, my kids ain't playing no concert band music. I can get your kids to play concert band music because I know enough repertoire. I know that Syzygy got some sexy ass jazz chords in it, and kids gonna be grooving and bumping. Like, I know if I could go to MPAs and the kids in the audience will be whipping and nae into some concert band music, I knew I picked the right song.
Yeah.
And we still trying to play dead white people music. And I joke with my kids. I be like, I like my white people alive and living, because there's some dope music by people who are alive. There's Marie Douglas's out there. There's Michael Kameff. Like, I met him at our conference, our state conference a few weeks ago. Like, they're writing music that applies to kids. Like, and it has nothing to do with black or white as much as being in tune with how music is evolved. They're using digital music and digital sounds and DAWs in the middle of concert band music. Concert band music doesn't mean classical anymore. Where the hell did we get this from? But again, if your university didn't have you playing, like Dan said, diverse music, new composers, trying out new things, music that is cross-cultural and cross-genre and fusion. If you didn't have that, then yeah, you might be like, my kids ain't playing concert band music. I could come in anybody's band room and find a song and get their kids to play it. But we can't say that musicianship is being built off of a concert F for 37 measures straight. Shameless plug, Cold Hearted Snake.
Yeah.
See,
one of the things that sorry about that, Kevon. Now, one of the things about this here and now, how should I put this? We gotta make it to where, first of all, a lot of us, most people, coming through the time and time again, we've trained on the classical ear. We've been taught, we've been taught Western classical pedagogy. And we've been taught, well, this is the standard. If you look at Goals 2000 and all the rest of these curriculums, when they revamped in curriculums and everything, we've been taught, well, this is the standard. This is how it should be. This is how, and anything outside of this is just non-musical. We got to get out of that. We got to get out of that.
I agree. We also got to get into curriculum writing. Shameless plug. It ain't gonna change if we don't write it. Let's be real. The reason I write curriculum, because it wasn't working for my kids.
There was a long time before hip hop was even accepted. Now, I wish till this day, I can't wait. And then I'm starting to see some things. Why is it? This is the thing. Why is it when you see and when you show an elementary student or even a middle school student an example of a marching band, you got to show them a chorus style band, or you got to show them the symphonic band or concert band full of, I hate to say it, but full of Caucasian kids. And maybe one or two, they need to see more representation, especially at black schools. They need to see more representations of themselves. And they got to have, you got to have, everything has to be diverse. Even with a lot of these district MPAs, their music has to be revamped. Mm-hmm. A lot of those songs that are on those lists, Bristol, what's the name of that?
Bristol Bay Legend.
Bristol Bay Legend is still on that. Now, a lot of swear engines music. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, Brighton Beach March. I played Brighton Beach March in high school when I was at Raines.
We got about a 5-year stand before the music changes over. We change our list about, there's a review every year. You can request new music on our state list, and the review board changes music, because y'all know I'm on the board for our MEA. That's another thing. Y'all got to get on the boards. Like, you can't change nothing if you're not at the table. And some of it is, blocking. But Dan, go ahead. Dan, you got your church finger up.
Sorry, it's backtracking just a little bit, but we're talking about having the admin conversation about marching band and things like that. And one of those things is that, and I mentioned in the comment section, but fundamentally a college marching band is different than a high school band, from the mission that they operate under, the organization, where they even get the money.
Exactly.
A high school band should not be trying to emulate a college marching band, other than the fact that they march on the field and play music.
But them admin though.
At UF, the marching band was paid by athletics. It wasn't in the school of music.
Tell it to the principals, Dan.
That's what.
Hold on, Freeman. Go ahead, Dan. Finish.
So that's where this has got to go. That's what I tell my kids all the time, is that there's no jobs in marching band. Well, there's very few jobs in marching band. They're just pure marching band. Very, very few jobs. And if they are, you're still working at GameStop or whatever while you're being somebody's freaking drum instructor underpaid, right? But like you got to make the
Hey, my
connection with the
husband used to
kids.
work at GameStop, man.
You make the connection with the kids. Like, yeah, this college marching band, they're going to do this mission, which is to play for the football game to entertain the audience. It's probably not a music education arm of that university. They're probably not in there trying to teach them scales and trying to teach them complex theory. They might not be. It depends on where you go, but that's not going to be their fundamental focus. Their fundamental focus is going to be, let's get this show out. Let's get a different show every week. Let's do whatever. Come to rehearsal. And if you're a music ed, you're in concert band and things like that. And that's going to differ locally. But that goes back to that comprehensive high school band program thing. If that's what you're building, it's going to be in all the things. And that you say, this is how we're different than a college marching band, more or less, because while college marching band is doing this, and that's physics majors doing a 1-credit class on Monday night, right? You're in here every other day. And at the end of the year, I still need you to know X major scales, X key signatures, X this, and this. And that's where we need to be. So yeah, we're not going to march all year. Yeah, we're not going to or we're going to weave it in. So maybe we do march all year, but it's all weaved in to what we do. And it's on our practice rotation schedule so that you're hitting those other things. Other things also.
A lot of this, with the emulation of college, because a lot of, these guys coming out of school, and a lot of they're going to emulate their alma mater no matter what. It doesn't, even though it's not, they shouldn't do it, but they're going to do it because it ain't because it has nothing to do with the admin. Because some admins will be like, oh, I don't want you marching that style. But that band director is going to emulate his school because that's what he knows. That's all he knows. But then again, some of these bands and some of these directors have to find an identity. They have to find an identity with whether it may be. Because sometimes, man, in a lot of ways, there's no such thing as, unless you march in court style, there's no such thing as, not emulating your alma mater. Because somebody's going to emulate somebody's school. Somebody's going to emulate somebody's school. Somebody from Cookman is going to emulate Cookman. Somebody from FAMU is going to emulate FAMU. You can tell it. You can see it. Now, some might, use their own ideas and then keep some elements of it. But, that's what they do. That's what, some of these people do. And I think that bands should be, well-rounded. I like what bands are doing now. They're focusing on, after marching band, they're focusing on, symphonic band. And then after some concert band season, they start to go to these band brawls, these band jamborees, spring battle of the bands. And, they keep, everything has its place. Everything has its place, and I like, the position of a lot of, bands and around the United States, I like what they're in, especially dealing with, the HBCU culture.
So, Kayvon, you got a response to Freeman, and then KT, we want to hear something from you on this topic. If you have something, and then we're going to have to wrap up because we're going to be here all night, which is a good conversation. I love y'all, but my husband cooked dinner tonight and he can cook. So I want to eat.
Yeah, I got you. So with that, with us emulating, our colleges, one of my biggest challenges was like trying to. I have a thing like, and my kids they call it being petty, but I want to be different, like from everyone else, and so it's really hard because it's so much peer pressure. Like for example, like I graduated from Prairie View, but my students they do not march like Prairie View. Now certain elements, yeah. So we still do drum features, but that's about all of the PV that you're gonna get out of me. Plus of course, I mean the sound, yeah. The good sound, but overall, like I want to be different, and I'm trying to stay relevant with the students, and to be honest, man, like the HBCU bands, not don't get me wrong, I love them all. I'm a Jackson State fan. I love Jackson State band. I love Florida and them, love Southern, love Texas Southern. I mean, I love them all, but it's starting to kind of be repetitive, like the same way that y'all just said. The concert music is the same old thing, like year in year out. Well, with the universities, it's kind of starting to be the same old thing too. So how so I'm trying myself, like I've always written songs, by artists that no bands play, like like a lot of Pitbull, and because my school is Latino, so we're not black, so I have to do music that's appropriate for them. So and so that goes back to research, so I research these artists, and then I'm gonna be honest. I just ask the kids, like, what kind of man, who is this artist? Who is this artist? Uh, yeah, Bad Bunny, man. Bad Bunny got some stuff. I mean, that
Facts.
can go for marching, for jazz. I mean, he got some stuff. So I think that we as band directors, like, we gotta start kind of opening up our eyes, our ears too, because our college bands, man, playing the best of the '80s. Yeah, shoot, that's old now. I mean, just to be honest.
People making it a Bethune-Cookman thing about them not stepping up with the times and everything, but I think all HBCUs
Yes.
need some tweaking.
We all,
Yes.
we
They
all,
you need some tweaking. All of them need tweaking. JSU,
Yeah.
any of them need tweaking, because it's beginning to be repetitive. Same old.
let me tell you why. A big reason why, the elephant in the room that we can't talk about tonight. Because Berger says this all the time. We got these old, still holding on. They never, I always say to my generation, Freeman, I generation, Kayvon, I generation, KT, I generation, Dan, I feel like not your generation. It's okay. We got cheated because they never left. So we never got a chance to bring in new ideas with the times. We never got in the damn door because they still there. And even when they retired, hit ass come back again. And I'm like, that kids don't even learn that way no more. And that's not saying that they not great educators, but they never left. They never left. And so everything is outdated. The curriculum is outdated. Praxis didn't even exist when they started teaching. All they had to do was play their horn. They never had to do any of the things that we do now. And so now they're raising music educators who are out of touch with what it means to be a 21st century music educator, band director in every facet. It's because the old guard never passed the torch. And now what we see is something crazy. We see the old guard damn near dying at the seat, and then a new young cat got to come in. A young cat coming, they don't know shit. So it's the worst. It's like completely polarized. And I'm not saying that young people in bands don't bring good energy and bring new ideas, but they haven't been put through the proving ground. I'm still of that generation that some things just come with time and work. And if you just left that seat, you're missing a lot of skills to make a band great. You may have them relevant, but they may never be really great. They lack true experience. And so now we got this polarization, and people like Freeman, people like KT, people like us who are still teaching on the level that we're teaching. And then when our kids go up, they hit a ceiling. And that ceiling is going to stay there. And it's unfortunate. It's even worse as a woman. It's worse as a person of color. It's even bad for if you're young and white, which I had to learn. Because a lot of the white directors of PWI has been there since before cable. Like, you started teaching before cable and you still in that damn seat. It's time to go. Mentor somebody. Leave. Retire. You got 50 years. It's time to pass the torch. That's my spiel. I ain't even gonna talk no more after that because that one just burns me up. KT, then Dan, you'll start with the piece of advice that you would give a current music educator, or a music major, not music educator. One piece of advice. Keep it short, because I'm hungry. One piece of advice. All right, KT.
Piece of advice I would give is practice. I would say meaningful practice. Take as many opportunities as you can. Be hungry for those opportunities. And if you know that you want to go to graduate school or the next level, start as early as possible and not rush and wait till your senior year to try to get all this stuff together. So practice, be hungry for experiences, and make sure that you set yourself up for the next level.
All right. Dan. Man with many facts, man. You need to write a book.
I would say learn how to teach a performance class that it looks nothing like band or choir, so that you don't get stuck teaching music, generalized music out of a book. So I do guitar, I have 3 sections of guitar, 150 kids in guitar. We have a great time in there. You learn a lot about music teaching because everyone's on the same instrument and you get instant feedback to how you present that skill. So it can be world music drumming, it can be guitar, it can be music technology, it can be learn something so that you're not trapped teaching general music education, whatever your district thinks that should be, and you get a fat green book with 93 outdated ideas in it.
That's good. Freeman. Hold on. You muted. Freeman, you muted.
My bad. I say study and keep studying to show yourself approved. Something that you really want, go for it. Study. You got to study. You got to practice. You got to practice. Perfect practice makes perfect performances. And also, you got to, study things that outside. And like what Dan was talking about, study music technology. I did a lot of music technology with my students. Look into other things that you can do to try to bring them in. Try and do some cross curriculum too, with social studies, tying social studies to music. That's why I'm saying broaden your horizons and study to show yourself approved, and go outside of the box. Go outside.
I like that. Got to study to show thyself approved. You got to teach something outside of what it is that you thought. Because some of y'all hate general music, and I do too, because it doesn't have a deliverable. It doesn't have an end game.
But here's the thing about general music. You got to get the kids interested. That's one of the reasons why I like general music. You have to, these kids' days, you have YouTube, you have, all these little YouTube rappers and things they follow. You got to get these kids interested in music, and you have to meet them where they are.
It can't be a lecture class. If you teaching like a lecture class, that's why you hate it and they hate it too. Kayvon, Mr. Reynolds.
Man, y'all spitting some great knowledge here, man. Talking about the general music classes, because we all have one, and they personally it ain't my favorite, but man, my goal in that class is making it fun and interesting. So we talk about Tupac and Biggie and Elvis and all of that, in addition to Beethoven and Mozart. And so my advice to the music majors is, man, just like these gentlemen said, like study study first, and also try to visit some of the local schools, like see what it's like, man. Just look, pack your lunch, go sit up in the band room for a day. And matter of fact, not just the band room, but sit up in the choir room too. Sit up in a dance or color guard practice too. And that's the thing that we didn't really mention, like the growing trend of band directors having to do choir, having to do color guard, like things of that sort. I mean, that's now I'm gonna say this. During your interview, if they ask you to do it, say no. Because I got stuck doing it. Yeah. I got stuck doing it. But the difference is, see, I'm a doer. So I was 25. They call me in and they say, we need a drill team person. So you off a drill team? I'm like, I don't know nothing about dance, but I can organize. You know what I'm saying? And then I got put it together. And shoot, I got one of the best, one of the top in the district now, like dance and color guard. So it's just man, take some classes, like during convention, like if they have a color guard class, go on to sit up in there, go on grab a flag and do something with it. If they have a sightseeing class or something like that, do that sightseeing because you never know what they're gonna demand of you and pay you for. So
let me tell you how many facts y'all just spoke. Real facts and things that if I'd known these things when I first got into the classroom, like I think I'm doing all right, but it took me a long time to do all right. Like current music majors got an advantage over us because they're in a technological age where they have access to information that's free. Oh my God, there isn't something I wouldn't be able to play or do if I had all this access. My advice, I'm gonna spin off everybody. Study. Don't take for granted those private lessons. Don't take for granted those general music classes or whatever. Don't take for granted any of that time. Because you never know when you're going to need that information. Like that information creeps up in your classroom. And if you wasn't paying attention, you find yourself like, damn, my director said that. Damn, I was in the elementary music class and I should have been paying attention to these orff instruments. Like I took it for granted. I'm going to say, get involved with the process of what it is to be a music educator outside of the classroom, because a lot of the things you bring in your classroom is going to come from outside of it. Get involved with your MEA. Go to Midwest as a student. Go to these conferences. Go to TMEA. Go to all of these things. Go for Music for All. Go to these things and get information, because student registration at these conferences piss me off. Because it'd be like $20 to go to Midwest. It'd be $25. It's like $180 for us. And I didn't know that you should be a part of these conferences to get this information young. The other thing I was going to say about it's all mentorship to some degree, but don't just sit under the same regiment of people from your reformation. If you went to Jackson State, find somebody outside your conference to piggyback ideas on. I am not from the SWAC. I ain't SWAC, but I got a lot of damn information. But somebody from the SWAC got just as much information in another category. I have no problem calling Kayvon about information because he knows how to do a lot of stuff. I don't know if you heard the brother. He's teaching dance. I was like, what? You teach color guard? Like, what the hell? I don't know how to do that. But if I have to, I know who I'm calling. You cannot just think that the grass is only green on your side of the fence. I don't give a who says what about Morgan State? I don't know any of us who ain't raw on our horn. I don't know any of us who can't write for our own program. I don't know any of us that don't have a diverse outlook on music. And that didn't come from me coming from a well-known marching band. That came from being somewhere else, going to other band rooms, other choir rooms. Go to the math teacher room. I got some good practices from a math teacher. She had classroom management like no other. Some of my best practices came from the math teacher down the hall. I was like, damn, those kids like move and sync. I need that for my band room. Let me write that down. So don't be so one dimensional in your thinking that you think the only information that's good comes from your alma mater. That is a setup for failure, because all of our alma maters have a weakness. And that weakness will slap you in your damn face your first year's teaching. It'll be like, jazz man. It'll be like, didn't have a good percussion studio. Every time. Slapping you upside your head. Woodwind methods, y'all. Some of y'all don't. I'm looking at some of the babies and their instrument is backwards. And I'm like, you don't know that timpani on the wrong? You better move the timpani around. That's the wrong order. Can't tune the timpani. That comes from going somewhere else and seeking out information. That's my last spiel. I have thoroughly enjoyed y'all. My grades are due by midnight tomorrow. It's cool. But thank y'all for this conversation. Y'all welcome back anytime, for real. Y'all part of the diary team. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank y'all for tuning in. Hit the like daddy, subscribe daddy, get those notifications. We won't be online next Sunday. Y'all find out why on Sunday. Y'all gonna be like, damn, that's how I'm gonna be. I got big news, but I can't say nothing. So I'll see y'all on the other side. Thank you. Deuces, Dan. Thank you.